those who represent us in this honorable chamber. Commit all the precious Lord upon them. May they follow your guidance and seek to do the thing that is right. Through them, your will be done for this nation. In honor and glory of your name, through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. God and Father of all, through the self-sacrifice of your Son, reconcile the world to yourself, and charge us with the work of your peace. By the healing influence of your Spirit, inspire and direct those who are called to bring reconciliation to areas of strife and discord. Through their work, we may learn to give and forgive, to listen and to love, after the example of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. To the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever.
Students say that to the same way. Yeah, I got it.
Good morning to all. I wish to first start by acknowledging the presence of the Barbados Community College Media and Journalism students and the tutor coordinator, Wendy Cox. I hope that you find this session intriguing and appealing and that you can take back something to the Barbados Community College. I wish you well as you watch proceedings this morning and this afternoon. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, February 11, 2020 to be deferred.
The minutes of the meetings held on Tuesday, February 11, 2020 be deferred.
The question is that the aforementioned minutes be deferred. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Announcements by Your Honor the Speaker. Messages from Her Excellency the Governor General. Petitions, papers.
Before we continue proceedings, it might be an age factor or a point of amnesia setting in. I most heartily welcome back Dr. Brown to chambers. And this is especially from the Speaker. We have a very special relationship, and I know that relationship will continue. Welcome back, Dr. Brown.
The papers.
Honourable Christchurch, East Central, East.
Mr. Speaker, I'm commanded to lay the Green Paper on the 2020 Water Protection and Land Use Zoning Policy.
Thank you.
Honourable St. Michael South Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am commanded to lay the loan agreement between the Government of Barbados and the Development Bank of Latin America, CAF, Water Infrastructure Rehabilitation Project.
Government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills. Okay. Statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motion for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Honourable Cedar Bridgetown.
Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of standing orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
The question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended.
Government business.
Government business is now the order of the day.
Order number 10, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs and Investment, the second reading of the Exchange Control Amendment Bill 2020.
Honourable Member Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to commence the second reading of this bill, which speaks to amendments to the Exchange Control Act of Barbados. But, sir, whilst these amendments before the Chamber today reflects this government's focus and vision with respect to how we intend, one, sir, to engage the world, two, how we intend to manage the public finances, three, sir, how we intend to attract new investment, sir. The genesis of this and the amendments are clear. And let me just remind the Chamber, sir, that this particular amendment was first introduced, sir, in the budget of 2017 by the former Minister of Finance, the former member for St. Michael Northwest. And I want today, sir, to paint what is clearly a stark contrast, sir, between when the measure was first announced in that budget, sir, and where we stand today. Now, sir, Barbados, since the central bank was established, sir, in 1973, has long been committed, sir, to maintaining a fixed exchange rate. That fixed exchange rate, all Barbadians, sir, know is 2 Barbados dollars to 1 United States dollar. And since the inception of, or the creation, sir, of the central bank and the issuance of Barbados currency, as we separated ourselves, sir, from the EC dollar at that time, governments successively have ensured that it manages the public finances, sir, such that it does not create, sir, an unnecessary set of pressures with respect to ordinary Barbadians, ordinary businesses being able to go about their business, sir, in this country. But somewhere along the line, sir, and we have had some balance of payments issues in the past. 1991 specifically, sir, comes to mind for all Barbadians specifically, because at that time, sir, in 1991, the reserves at the central bank fell to 1.5 weeks. In the heyday, sir, before the then government, the then Democratic Labour Party government, entered into arrangement with the International Monetary Fund. And as you know, sir, and just for the benefit of the students present, at that time, sir, Barbadians were treated to what is the infamous 8% cut across the entire public service, sir, as well as it filtered into the private sector. Almost 10,000 persons went home, sir, at that time, simply because, sir, in the lead up to the 91 election, the then government, in an attempt to win favor with the people, sir, started spending wildly and created, sir, fiscal pressures on the foreign exchange at that time. And therefore, just after the election, sir, and I want to remind the young journalists, the budding journalists, that it's important to read your history and understand what is taking place in this country. Prior to the election, sir, at that time, a statement was made, I don't recall who said it, sir, but they said the economy was batting like cigar field sobers. And for all those who know that when you see cigar back, there's no comparison whatsoever. But shortly after the election, sir, all was revealed at that time with respect to the fact that the government of the day had so squandered the opportunity that they had that it ended up, sir, with severe disruption across thousands of households in this country in 1991. I was a youngster then, sir, and I didn't understand any of it. This was long before I even had thoughts of becoming an economist, sir. But what stood out in my mind then, sir, was that we had to export all of our sugar as was produced then, and we had to import, sir, sugar from Guatemala. Which, sir, no matter how you strain this thing, sir, no matter how you strain it, this thing was never clean, sir. It was never clean. But ordinary Barbadians, sir, had to suffer because of the incompetence, sir, of a Democratic Labour Party government. And I start here, sir, to come forward and say that for the serious balance of payments issues that we had in the early 90s, sir, the Barbados Labour Party came to office in 1994, sir, and started to create, sir, an environment where confidence in the economy, sir, recovered quickly. 30,000 jobs at that time, sir, were created over the course of the administration of the Barbados Labour Party, sir, to the point that when the Barbados Labour Party, sir, left office at the beginning of 2008, our reserve position, sir, had recovered to the point where there were no concerns at all, sir, about whether the Barbados dollar would be devalued. The government, having changed, sir, had the resources available, sir, to spawn a new era, sir, of development and growth in this country. Now, sir, we know that having left over $1.5 billion in reserves at the end of 2007, and I want to give the proper context as best I can, because in a small open economy, sir, especially one that intends to maintain a fixed exchange rate, fiscal discipline, sir, is absolutely paramount. Absolutely paramount. So, the previous administration, sir, the previous administration took over an economy, sir, that was robust, that was strong. And succeeded, sir, succeeded, and I use that word deliberately, sir, succeeded in creating, once again, sir, a level of vulnerability for all Barbadians. Because rather than learn from its own behavior in the past, they sought, sir, to surpass that fiscal indiscipline, which they succeeded in doing, sir. And all Barbadians who, certainly in 2018, sir, went to the polls, sir, and voted resoundingly to create a different path for Barbados. A different path, sir. And in so doing, the Barbados Labour Party was voted into office on May 24th. And, sir, I want to make it abundantly clear, because the reality is that there are some who will be listening and will make the presumption that this is political or partisan, sir. We all know government is a continuum. And I want to make that clear. Government is a continuum. And therefore, as one administration leaves and the other comes in, sir, you assume the responsibility, sir, for managing the affairs of the country. But when we took office, sir, and we got the briefing at the Ministry of Finance with the Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East, the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central, and myself, sir, by the Ministry of Finance on the Friday afternoon, sir, receiving the briefing. The foreign reserves at that time, sir, stood at just over $400 million. But it stood at over $400 million. But in June, there were commitments, sir, to pay foreign debt. And so I start here with respect to the notion, sir, that we have to create a clear contrast between this Barbados Labour Party administration and that of the previous administration. So we had to take urgent action, sir, because had we continued what the previous government had succeeded in doing with respect to bringing Barbados to its knees economically, sir, then to continue their policies would have created a situation, sir, where the Barbados dollar would have been devalued. And that devaluation, sir, would have created a significant amount of instability, not just in the economy, but certainly across the social fabric of Barbados. And so we took decisions, sir, in the context of being able to ensure that this government, sir, this government, put the public finances back on track, sir, such that no Barbadian, sir, no investor, no business person would be concerned about the prospect of devaluation. And therefore, sir, you have to start with a clear policy objective in mind. I will never forget, sir, I will never forget. We had the social partnership meeting, sir, on the Monday. And the Prime Minister laid out very clearly for the entire social partnership, sir, very, very, very clearly, what was at stake if we continue to do what the previous government was doing with respect to the execution of public policy in this country. And the Prime Minister went around the room, sir. As you know, the composition of the social partnership, you have representatives of the private sector, you have representatives, sir, of the labor movement, you have representatives from government. And when the Prime Minister laid out what was at stake, sir, at stake, and we went around the room, sir, man to man, woman to woman, sir, and asked everyone in that room that morning, sir, whether they would do whatever is required, sir, to maintain the integrity of the Barbados dollar. To a man and to a woman, sir, everyone agreed that this country had to do everything that it took that was required to save the dollar. To save the dollar. Now, sir, since then, we have set in motion a series of policy interventions, which today, as I speak to you, sir, and I'm going to, just for the benefit of the chamber, sir, for the benefit of the chamber, the foreign reserve, sir, up until yesterday, sir, stood at $1.489.9 billion, sir. Up to yesterday, February 17th, sir. $1.4899 billion. Because, sir, this government, having inherited what was clearly a dire situation as it relates not just to the foreign exchange, but the entire economic fabric and social well-being of this country, set about implementing policies, sir, that will create a clear contrast between us and what went before. Now, sir, I go back to the budget of 2017. Because you would recall, sir, that at that time, and prior to that, the central bank had printed almost $2 billion, sir, to finance government to the tune of almost $50 million a month, sir. Nobody knew that, sir. Nobody knew that. We came to office, sir, and in July of 2018, sir, we restricted the central bank's ability, sir, to purchase what we call primary securities, and we limited it, sir, to 10% of expenditure. The reality is, sir, that in the dead of night, the central bank was printing money, sir, and contributing to finance government, sorry, and contributing, sir, to its own mandate, to the demise of its own mandate, which is to maintain the integrity of the dollar. And when they had exhausted and reached the limit where they knew they could go no more, sir, they then turned to increasing the reserve requirement with respect to the commercial banks and being able to help further finance government's operations. So when the previous member for St. Michael Northwest and the then Minister of Finance brought this particular measure to introduce the 2% foreign exchange fee in 2017, sir, it was pretty much, sir, at the back end of what had been 9 years, sir, of failed economic policy. And you would recall, sir, that there were probably about 6 or 7 different medium-term fiscal strategies. They were revised this and revised that. It also culminated, sir, just at the back end of 2017, something called the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan or something, sir, that really and truly, sir, whilst everything might appear to make sense on paper, the capacity, sir, to implement just was not there because the policy mixer was wrong. And so this 2% imposition on the foreign exchange, sir, in 2017 was related, sir, to transactions with respect to wire transfers, credit card transactions, and all over-the-counter foreign currency sales. Now, let me also provide a little more context, sir. In addition to the foreign exchange fee that was implemented in 2017's budget, what had also happened, sir, in the system, because there was no confidence, sir, no confidence at all. And you know, sir, at least we know, that when you have a well-run economy, sir, people lend to each other easily because they know they can get back their money. And what is important to appreciate, sir, is that in the foreign exchange market, which the commercial banks are the predominant players as authorized dealers delegated by the Central Bank of Barbados, if one bank, sir, has demands for foreign exchange from its customers, and it's a little short, it can always borrow money overnight, sir, which normally happens. You borrow overnight and you settle, sir, on an ongoing basis between banks. But so disrupted, sir, was the economic situation in this country that the banks seldom engage in that kind of activity, because the truth is, sir, if I lend to you and I'm not sure if I can get back the money, then I have to pull up brakes. So rather than engaging in more aggressive or a more vibrant set of interbank lending with respect to foreign exchange, what was happening is that requests then were going directly to the central bank, almost bypassing what the normal market conditions would do. And because, as you know, sir, the reserves were dropping, and they were dropping at rapid rates. And I will never forget, sir, I attended a consultation in June of 2013 at the Hilton, and I think some members in here, when we were in opposition, would have attended this national consultation in June of 2013, when it was then revealed that after the election, that the reserves had dropped by almost $300 million in 3 months, which, as you could appreciate, sir, the election being in February, typically, which is obviously in the midst of the tourism season, traditionally, sir, you would see increase with respect to foreign currency being deposited into the banks, because the more tourists you have, obviously here, and spending, those deposits then go into the commercial banks, and then some are sold on to the central bank, which then increases the net international reserves. But in a short space of time, sir, if my memory serves me correctly, the reserves had dropped by about $300 million, and all of a sudden, sir, they started to recognize that there was a problem. This is probably, by that time, sir, they were on the 4th version of the medium-term fiscal strategy. But despite the fact that the reserve position had dropped significantly, despite that, sir, the then government went on to secure the Credit Suisse loan, and as you know, sir, the downgrades were coming thick and fast. Fast and furious. And despite the fact that they had not changed, sir, fundamentally the fiscal policy, which continued to see the government of Barbados' debt downgraded from what was investment grade, sir, then to junk bond status. And then, sir, over those years, people want to know how much lower can we go as a country? Because the truth is, sir, under the Barbados Labour Party government, sir, there were no downgrades. the confidence, sir, with respect to what was going on in the country, sir, saw investment flow into the country. And so, therefore, the government's debt sustainability and the credit quality of the government, sir, was not in question. Furthermore, sir, the government paid its bills on time. They paid its bills on time. Arrears weren't built up, sir. But the government, sir, proceeded in December of 2013 to get the $225 million with respect to Credit Suisse. And you will recall, sir, that the terms or conditions with respect to that Credit Suisse loan said that for every downgrade, sir, for every downgrade, that the interest cost will increase by 0.5%. Now, as fate would have it, sir, I recall, and forgive me, I recall the loan was signed on December 13th of 2013, sir. And I do believe, sir, that on December 20th, Moody's issued a credit rating for Barbados that was a triple notch downgrade, sir, at that time. Triple notch. So before your money even get in your hands good, your interest cost, sir, had already increased by 1.5%. And you didn't even start paying back. You didn't even do nothing with it yet, sir. And from there, sir, the downgrades accelerated. And the more the then government, sought to defend its flawed public policy, the worse things got, sir. The worse things got. So when we came to office, sir, and we met certainly with the social partnership, and we indicated to the social partnership that we had to do everything, sir, to ensure that we stabilize the country, maintain the integrity of the fixed exchange rate, sir. This government, under the leadership of the Honourable Prime Minister, the member for St. Michael North East, took a decision, sir, that rather than pay the $100-odd million in June of 2018, which would have obviously led to a decrease in the reserves from the 400-odd that it was when we took office to 3. And had we continued and not done anything else, sir, there was another $100 million that was due in December. But the critical thing to understand, sir, is that if we did not change course, sir, if we did not change course drastically, and had we continued to execute the policy of the previous government, sir, one, we would have likely had a downgrade under our watch, which would have increased the very cost of the very loan that was due to be serviced. And so this government, sir, took a decision that we were going to execute a comprehensive debt restructuring, including both domestic and the external commercial debt. We then subsequently, sir, sought to enter into an extended fund facility arrangement with the International Monetary Fund, sir, which started on October 1st, 2018, sir, called the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program, sir, which sets out quite clearly, sir, that as we said in our manifesto, sir, part of our focus and mission, sir, is to bring Barbados's credit rating, sir, back to investment grade in the shortest possible time. Which means that the only way that you can do that, sir, is if you treat to not just your official debt, sir, because it is important to understand that whilst there were queues in the foreign exchange market, which obviously led, unfortunately, sir, to some business people having to run from the government, and that's the best way I can put it, sir, because if people were executing business outside of Barbados, sir, they were keeping their monies offshore because they know that if they brought it in, sir, that the government was printing so much money, sir, that you didn't see it. And people took action in the interest of their business, and the truth is, sir, as individuals, sir, we all make decisions every day with respect to how we will survive. How we will survive. But it was the responsibility of the government, sir, to create an atmosphere of confidence so that business investment, consumer confidence, as well as investor confidence, sir, will increase. But the previous government, sir, through one, its failure, sir, failure to pay suppliers to government, whether individuals or businesses, for the goods and services that they offered, sir, ran up arrears, and basically, sir, took the services from people, refused to pay them, then tell them, sir, that you got to stay current with your VAT and obviously your obligation. But if you're supplying goods and services to the government, sir, and you don't get paid, it means your cash flow in trouble. And therefore, any business, sir, operating in those circumstances, any individual small entrepreneur, sir, supplying government in good faith, sir, in good faith, and not being paid, sir, then suddenly finds themselves in a situation, sir, where they can't pay the NIS for the employees, find themselves in a situation where certainly the VAT returns as well as the PAYE, sir, you find yourself in trouble. And you would recall, sir, that there was a publication in the paper, sir, from the National Insurance Scheme, seeking to name and shame businesses, sir. Seeking to name and shame businesses, when much of those businesses, sir, were relying on payments from government to ensure that their cash flow and their management can continue on a day-to-day basis. And then to make matters worse, sir, if you had to do business overseas, all of a sudden, there was an introduction of a tax clearance certificate. So imagine this here, sir. You supply your good or your service to government, at the government department, expecting, because you go out, you use your money to supply the goods, supply the services. Then the government turns, sir, and they don't pay you. So obviously you can't pay your VAT, you can't pay your NS, you can't pay thing. And so people digging in their capital, sir, to keep things afloat. And then they turn around, sir, when you're ready to, because obviously, sir, people will shop around and try to find the best deals and what have you, sir. They introduce this tax clearance certificate so that if you wanted to access foreign exchange, sir, you had to be up to date with your taxes and your statutory obligations. Now, don't get me wrong, sir. I fundamentally believe all businesses, anybody engaging in enterprise should ensure that they stay current with their statutory obligations. So in the event that anybody seeks to misinterpret what I'm saying, I just want to make it clear that this Barbados Labour Party government, we want ordinary citizens, businesses to be good corporate citizens in order to ensure that there's order within the system. Order, sir. So when a government then seeks to introduce an administrative burden where you had to get a tax clearance certificate so that when you go to the bank, sir, in your normal course of your business, you're importing something, you're exporting something, you need foreign exchange, whatever it is that you need, sir, to facilitate business. You then had this imposition of this tax clearance certificate, which means, sir, that if the government don't pay for 6 months for the goods and services that you supply, that you're waiting on that money, sir, to help reinvest in your business. You might want to expand and hire a few more people, sir, go regionally, go internationally, sir. You can't do it because the very conduct, sir, of the government in building up those arrears by refusing, sir, to pay ordinary Barbadians. Ordinary Barbadians refusing, sir, for the goods and services that they supplied in good faith. They then turn around and put this administrative burden, which then prevented people from doing business in a normal way. So you can't blame a man then if he realizes, well, I can't operate on these conditions, so I got to find a way around and navigate this system. Got to find a way, because if I want to keep my business open, sir, you want to keep your business, everybody want to keep the business open, because a closed business, sir, is no help to anybody. And so people had to resort, sir, to doing interesting things. So if you had partners overseas, sir, you would deal with stuff in local dollars, they would deal with stuff in foreign currency. And what that also did, sir, is that it created a situation where business being conducted, that the proceeds were not coming into the country, which then contributed, sir, to the fact, besides the fact that the central bank was printing the money first to finance the government, reducing the increase of the demand on the reserves, hence the significant decrease. Businesses then finding relationships outside of Barbados to try to ensure that any business that you're doing, that you could, in a sense, partition, sir. So there's the foreign exchange portion, there's my domestic portion, so I can pay you in Barbados dollars and you sort out that there for me outside there. That is not good, sir. That is not orderly. That is not how the economy, sir, works. But people, sir, had to resort to these things just to work around the previous administration. And so we, sir, and that's why, as I said, sir, was this the introduction of this foreign exchange fee by the previous government was really at the end, sir, of a set of very flawed public policy. Having come to office, sir, and changed the trajectory with respect to confidence, really, confidence, because at 1.4, almost $1.5 billion, sir, in 20 months or so, sir, it's phenomenal. Now, we have had, sir, to engage in very serious public discourse on certainly the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program. We have engaged, sir, with the stakeholders across the board, sir, consistently as to why we need to go in this direction. Now, sir, in all of this, the economy certainly was not growing. Because if you're getting downgrade after downgrade after downgrade after downgrade, sir, the repair work that is required is significant, and it continues to be significant. And so we, sir, having come to office in May of 2018, we were starting from literally less than scratch, because the hole was so deep and so broad, sir, that the truth is, sir, you know, the average height of a person is probably 5 feet or so. I try to. I'm going to be between the extremes of the member for St. Peter and the member for St. Michael South Central. So I think, but okay, let's say 5'8". But the truth is, sir, at 5'8", when you outstretch your arm, sir, you probably get an extra 2.5 feet or so, right? So that put you at seven, let's say 7.5, sir. If you jump, sir, outstretched, you can probably reach maybe 9.5, maybe 10 feet with a. So if you found yourself at 5.5 feet, sir, you could probably, with some effort, sir, get out of a 10-foot hole. Probably, with a good spring. You could get out of a 10-foot hole. But the reason I say that, sir, is because the hole that the Democratic Labour Party left this country in, sir, was so deep that none of us in this country, sir, no matter how financially secure we thought we were, sir, no matter how secure we think our business was, sir, we were at a point, sir, where the hole was so deep that it would take a Herculean effort for any of us to get out on our own. Any of us to get out on our own. And therefore, sir, we set in train a series of policy interventions that will seek to ensure that, first of all, we stop digging the hole that the previous government certainly successfully did. And we start to backfill it, sir, because I want to remind this chamber, sir, that the last government for the last 3 years or so of their administration, they did not pay national insurance contributions, sir, for public servants. The government, you know, I remember I told you, sir, that they published through the NIS under the former minister, published a list of companies in the newspaper for who did not pay NIS. As I told you, sir, for a whole host of reasons, people were unable to do so. But for the last 3 years, sir, the government refused to pay national insurance contributions for public servants. Now, I know the Honourable Member for St. Peter, as the Minister of Labour, will find that absolutely disgraceful. And I think all of us in this chamber, and all of us in this country will find that disgraceful, because the government, sir, has to lead by example. You can't publish people's names, sir, in a newspaper for failure to pay NIS when you refuse to pay them. But then turn around, sir, and don't pay NIS for public servants. In addition to that, sir, as I told you. The arrears that they built up, sir, by basically taking things from people and refusing to pay. It was a form of what we call adversarial financing, sir, because you pretty much engage the government at your own peril. But we have changed that. And we have set in motion, sir, a program under the Burt Plan to settle those arrears, sir, which we have started, and we will continue to do so, sir, so that over the course of the 4 years of the program, we would have repaid, sir, all of those arrears with respect to what the government, sir, owed people. And what that has done, sir, is that it has certainly increased the level of confidence, not just in the business community, but certainly as we repay, sir, those income tax refunds for 2011 to 2016, sir, to individuals and the reverse tax credit, sir. That people now are seeing that this government, sir, is serious about restoring not just confidence, but certainly allowing persons in this country to be able to carry out their affairs in an orderly environment, sir. To the point now today, sir, there's nobody in Barbados that I am aware of that is concerned about the integrity of the dollar. And we have done what we have to do from a fiscal perspective, sir, to give confidence to the market that businesses can expand, investment can take place in this country, because there's a stable economic environment which has been created by this government. And in the context with respect to exchange controls, we are so confident, sir, because the difference is the previous government, sir, didn't want nobody to get access to foreign exchange, because by not paying people, contributing to a situation where businesses were delinquent with respect to their statutory obligations, and then putting in place, sir, the tax clearance requirement from the BRA, it clearly meant that you didn't want business to grow. It clearly meant, sir, that you had no intention with respect to allowing ordinary Barbadians to be able to earn a decent living. But we, sir, have come since we took office, and we have changed, sir, the trajectory. To the point, sir, where, as you are aware, sir, the Prime Minister in the budget of last year announced that we would allow ordinary Barbadians, sir, so long as you're earning foreign exchange, to hold a foreign currency account without, sir, having the need for the surrender requirement, which was normally at 70%. We've removed that surrender requirement, sir, because we have confidence, sir, in our people. Now, part of the reason, sir, and you know, life is funny. I told you before, sir, that people had to make arrangements to sort out their businesses. And so when we made the policy announcement, sir, a number of people then obviously contacted the commercial banks and certainly the central bank in terms of bringing their monies back to Barbados. Because as you know, sir, under the Exchange Control Act, really and truly, you're not supposed to have, unless you're a resident overseas, you're not really supposed to have a foreign account unless it's clearly authorized. So we had to issue a policy directive to say, look, well, people had to act in their own interest. And therefore, we will not criminalize, like the last government did, people in the way that they did, by forcing them into a position, sir, where they had to make clearly what may be regarded as adverse decisions to continue their businesses, not within the letter of the law as it stated, but people had to do something. And therefore, we have made a determination that once persons are able to declare what it is that they have overseas, sir, they'll be able to bring back those monies without any penalty, because, sir, confidence requires that there be order, sir, in the system. Order. And you cannot have economic growth if there's disorder in the system. And therefore, the government, through its own action, sir, working through the central bank as well as the other authorized dealers, which is mainly the commercial banks, have set that policy in place because we are confident, sir, of where we want to take this country and where we want to have achieved with respect to the economy. And so, sir, it is not just about the available foreign exchange in the country, and I want to just spend a few moments, sir, on the fact that in our manifesto, sir, we said that we are going to engage the world. And this government, sir, certainly has lived up with respect to that. We have opened a mission in Panama, sir, to add to the existing mission. We've opened a mission in Ghana, sir. We are sharing a mission with CARICOM in Kenya, and there's one to be opened up in Morocco. But why do I speak to these, sir? Our engagement, meaning Barbadians, sir, being able to leverage opportunities outside of Barbados, sir, will mean that the conduct of their commerce, sir, outside of Barbados, whatever services they're providing outside of Barbados, sir, which the government is seeking to open up the doors bilaterally, sir, to create the space for Barbados to go out, sir, which is not what the previous government was doing. We have sought to engage the world, and so therefore, our policy now of obviously allowing ordinary citizens to have foreign currency accounts is buttressed by the fact that we have actively, as a government and with purpose, sir, sought to go and engage in new arrangements to bring to light for Barbadians the fact that we have to earn our way in the world, yes, but that the government will play a critical role, sir, in opening up the doors for Barbadians. And therefore, the earning of foreign exchange and the notion of exchange control, because what we are essentially trying to do, sir, is to create a different or a parallel stream of income, sir, with respect to Barbadians, whether they go overseas for short engagements or long-term engagements, sir, to be able to repatriate, sir, with respect to the foreign currency accounts wherever they're engaging in some business enterprise. And therefore, we believe that for Barbadians, working certainly with the government and the various stakeholders, that we should, once we take advantage, sir, of the opportunities available to us, that we can, in a sense, build a much more resilient foreign exchange market, but it's buttressed not just by tourists coming to Barbados, sir, and spending money, but by Barbadians actively engaging the world to move beyond 166 square miles and seeing that as the only place that you can make a living. And therefore, we have to build confident Barbadians, young and old, sir. We have to give people the support to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. And therefore, it is our mission, sir, and as with everything, sir, it takes time to get structures set up. But the reality is that we have available to us a significant amount of domestic resources that we are seeing how we can mobilize, sir, to ensure that wealth is created for Barbadians, not just at home, but also abroad. And therefore, the trajectory with respect to how we view exchange controls, foreign currency, and the like, is that yes, we want to maintain 2-to-1, but we are not going to rely solely, sir, on the fact that the government needs to maintain a fiscal discipline. We want ordinary Barbadians to go out there, sir, expand their enterprise, get in to greater exports of either goods or services, leveraging, sir, the financial strength of the resources that we do have in a very strategic way, sir, in order to give an enhancement, sir, to our gross national income, so that we are no longer just focusing on what the GDP is, but certainly, and we certainly want the GDP to increase. Don't get me wrong, we want the GDP to increase. But with the GDP increasing, we also want the national income to increase by our citizens, sir, actively and aggressively, sir, engaging the world, so that the policy stance that we're taking here with respect to the management of exchange controls and how we deliver, sir, through our efforts in the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, a platform where the growth is actually felt by ordinary Barbadians. It will be as inclusive as possible, and therefore, as we transition, it is our intention, sir, to move from what clearly was an adverse policy intervention, as it was by the previous administration, to a platform, sir, where we can pivot and go out into the world, sir, with confidence and have our citizens engage in meaningful activity and leverage, sir, all those opportunities that are available to us. And so this is where, sir, we see a clear contrast between what we are intending to do and what we have done and what we will continue to do with respect to what the previous administration was doing. And therefore, sir, these wells for ordinary Barbadians who will see the fee when they shop online, they will see the 2% foreign exchange fee on the credit card bill. Our focus now, sir, is, and let me say, sir, that as an economist, and I have to say that the 2% obviously gives a slight distortion with respect to the exchange rate, because you know, sir, that our foreign currency is normally traded between 198 and 202 in terms of the exchange rate. And therefore, with the 2% imposition, that has moved now to 190s to 196 to 204. And if we were not in these circumstances, sir, as we are now, then we would have removed the 2% foreign exchange fee. But we are not yet in a position, sir, to do so. We will continue to monitor the performance with respect to this particular levy. But the truth is, sir, that it is distortionary, and at the earliest opportunity, we will seek to bring back to parity what we have long known with respect to the trading of the Barbados dollar. Now, sir, this is an opportunity for Barbados. It really is, sir. And part of the transformation is to ensure that we provide a platform where how we engage the world has to be supported, obviously, one, by government, but certainly Barbadians have to get accustomed, sir, to not just taking risks, but taking risks in an environment where, obviously, sir, there's increasing global uncertainty. But we have to engage, we have to continue to engage the world, and we have to do so with confidence. And we got to do so by being very strategic, sir, in how we deploy our resources, how we deploy our people, how we help, certainly, with development, certainly on the African continent. I believe, sir, that would be a significant platform with respect to how we can engage young people to go on to the African continent and help build more capacity over there. Our forays into Latin America, sir, has to be solidified, and therefore we see this not as a limiting factor, but the fact that we say we want to have a fixed exchange rate. But we see our new engagement in terms of this process and liberalizing the framework as an opportunity where, with aggressive intent, sir, supported by a responsive financial system, to be able to mobilize resources, that we can see strategically that these amendments would allow us to put Barbados, certainly, sir, in in a good position. Now, sir, the bill before the chamber, as it says, amends the Exchange Control Act, Cap 71, and with respect to provide for the imposition, sir, of a foreign exchange fee on foreign exchange transactions. B, the validation of the collection of the foreign exchange fee from the 17th of July 2017 and related matters. Now, sir, the truth is that, as with everything, and I think the fact that we are now validating it, as you know, sir, we've brought quite a bit of amendments to this chamber. And when the Prime Minister announced the liberalization last year, we found out, as we did with almost everything from the last government, that they didn't even prepare the legislation, sir, to bring into fruition what it is that they announced. So the validation clause here, sir, is to obviously give legality to what was introduced. But I have observed, sir, that all of us have had to do work of others and still try to do our own work, sir. And it is something that I hope through you, sir, the public understands that there's only so much time in a day, and if you can't do your work if you're having to do the work of others, in order just to clean up, sir, what is taking place. So clause 2, sir, speaks to section 2 of the Exchange Control Act and gives the definition, sir, for certainly the central bank, foreign currency provider, foreign exchange fee, money or value transmission services providers, and the weekday. The truth is, sir, that the Prime Minister last year, and this is really where you understand why policy is flawed in the way that the last government executed it. When we came to office, sir, and the reality is that we know that the last government was basically pulling at any straw, sir, and they imposed the fee without any recognition for the impact that it would have, sir, with respect to business. And so the Honourable Prime Minister, sir, in the budget last year, as you would recall, introduced a cap of $100,000 because, sir, obviously as we as we engage business, and we know that a number of our businesses, sir, including those that was previously known as the international business companies, engage in large transactions, sir, and therefore the notion that you would have pretty much an uncapped fee meant that businesses had to make decisions about the cost of their operation in Barbados. And so we put a cap of $100,000 certainly on the foreign exchange fee, because there's only so much that people are prepared in order to be able to levy in taxes, especially, sir, when you engage in multiple transactions of significant nature, that you end up with a skewed approach to taxation, where it pretty much turned out on the part of the last government to be just a tax grab. So the Section 5, sir, speaks to the cap that the Prime Minister implemented last year and gives the definition, sir, as it said, the foreign exchange fee calculated in accordance with subsection 3 and subject to subsection 4 is payable by a person who claims foreign currency in Barbados in any form from a foreign currency provider. B, who, whether in Barbados or outside Barbados, purchases foreign currency or purchases goods and services in foreign currency with a credit card, a debit card, or a prepaid travel card denominated in Barbados dollars and issued in Barbados. It says Part 1, sir, of the 5th schedule shall apply to the foreign exchange fee, and the formula for the computation of the foreign exchange fee is set out in Part 2 of the 5th schedule. And 4 says the foreign exchange fee payable in accordance with this section shall not exceed, sir, $100,000 per transaction. As with everything, sir, and I regret to tell you that When we came to office, there were some of the consulates, the consulates, sir, in the diplomatic corps, had some challenges with respect to the foreign exchange fee. And we had, sir, to provide certainly the exemption, which is set out, sir, at the amendment to 10C with respect to that, because as you are aware, sir, the Immunities and Privileges Act speaks to those issues, and that is outlined, sir, in section 10C. The next section, sir, speaks to the payment of the foreign exchange fee to the central bank, and it speaks to the fact that the central bank, that each foreign currency provider, sir, shall pay the foreign exchange fee collected pursuant to section 10A1 to the central bank no longer than the 15th day of the month following the end of the reporting period. And the rest is pretty much standard. The fee goes into the consolidated fund as always, sir, as non-tax, as part of the non-tax revenue, and we receive the statements as outlined there with respect to that. Now, sir, in the first schedule, and the first schedule, sir, speaks to the rules applicable to the collection of the fee by authorized dealers, and authorized dealers in this case, sir, relate to anyone that the central bank delegates the authority to trade in foreign currency. As I said, typically there are the commercial banks with respect to that. So therefore, that the schedule there outlines the rules applicable. The calculation is 2% of the foreign exchange purchase or utilized, multiplied by the applicable exchange rate. In the second schedule, sir, and I draw your attention specifically to clause 8 in the second schedule, where having, with respect to the fact that fuel obviously is critical, is a critical component in the economy, we exempted, sir, the purchase of kerosene type jet fuel, which is clearly used by the airline industry. Diesel oil for fuel for motor carriers falling under the tariff heading as assigned there in the customs tariff. Diesel oil falling under the tariff heading 2710 1940 900, sir, and bunker C grade fuel oil falling under the tariff heading 2710 1960. And so we have sought, sir, to ensure that which has the greatest impact in terms of the spread across the economy, sir, those purchases of fuel, sir, are exempt from the imposition of the fee, because as you could imagine, sir, fuel, not just for transportation purposes, but certainly for the generation of electricity, would obviously would have a knock-on effect with respect to cost, and so therefore we've exempted those transactions with respect to the exemption for this foreign exchange fee. Now, sir, these are but just a few the amendments here, sir, obviously relate will give effect certainly to the policy of the imposition of the amendments to the Exchange Control Act to be able to monitor and track, sir, the imposition of the foreign exchange fee. But as we have said, sir, from the beginning, this process with respect to how we look now, sir, to engage the world is going to be a critical plank, sir, of the transformation efforts as far as the economy is concerned. And I say through you, sir, to the country that staying the course with respect to the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program, implementing the reforms as quickly as possible, sir, would allow for the greatest opportunity with respect to be able to, for ordinary citizens and ordinary businesses to be able to see and feel and be a part of the actual economic recovery. And therefore, this government, sir, is intending to ensure that we provide a framework for inclusion, because we are aware, sir, that people would like opportunities to engage in various activities. We have started, sir, to ensure that we respond to the needs of our young people by providing opportunities for training, and then thereafter, sir, opportunities with respect to engaging in gainful employment. But the reality is, sir, that we have to pivot away from just thinking that Barbados, the 166, sir, is the only place that we can earn a living. And therefore, in that context, how we equip our people to become global citizens, sir, to engage actively on the global stage, supported, sir, by mobilization of domestic resources to redound to the benefit of wealth creation for ordinary Barbadians, sir. I believe that is where the true transformation with respect to what we inherited and what we can pass on, sir, to the next generation will come from. But we have to be committed, sir, to go into the world and take some level of risk, engage people that perhaps, sir, we have a lot in common, and therefore with that, with having a lot in common, it means then that we can support each other. And we are doing so as a government, sir, by reaching out bilaterally, sir, to interested parties. And therefore, we anticipate that we can open up the space for Barbadians, sir, to go out into the world and actually earn foreign exchange. And it is through that, sir, that we will build a much more resilient economic framework that does not only rely on the fiscal discipline of a government, but also on certainly the innovation of our citizens, the cut and thrust and aggression of our business people to see an opportunity. And the reality is, sir, that we have to work with partners, whether domestically or outside of Barbados, in order to ensure that we can reach a stage where we are creating not just wealth, but jobs, ownership state in whatever it is that we choose to pursue. And it is that ethos, sir, that Barbadians now must look to adopt so that we do not, sir, allow any opportunity to pass by this country. And we do hope, sir, that as we continue, sir, to not just meet our targets under the Burke Plan, but as the economy starts to recover, where persons then can start saving again like they used to, sir, young people getting into the workforce, sir, whether physically in Barbados or outside of Barbados, that we can build resilience within households and communities, simply because we have looked at what clearly was a problem in defense of the peg, but pivoting, sir, to be able to allow Barbadians to go into the world, sir, and to start to engage with confidence with respect to economic activity. And so, sir, these amendments before the Chamber are just a start with respect to how we want to open up the space with respect to new investment, open up the space with respect to business confidence for those who operate domestically. And certainly, sir, as you know, and I forgot to mention, sir, that you will recall, sir, that the Prime Minister also increased the allowance for travel from $7,500 to $20,000 a year, because, sir, it is part of how we see that if you're going to ask people to engage the world, sir, then they must have the space to be able to go and win business. And therefore, you cannot, sir, achieve greatness if you put limiting factors on people. And therefore, that is a part of how we will manage certainly the foreign exchange position of the country by being aggressive with respect to how we implement policy and to use regulation, sir, as a tool for a competitive edge, as opposed to just seeking to control what is taking place within the domestic borders. And so these are just some of the policy amendments, sir, and that require the legislative adjustment. As you know, sir, the central bank being the authority is delegated from the Ministry of Finance to the central bank to deal with exchange control matters, and then they further delegate to the dealers with respect to how ordinary citizens and ordinary business people access foreign exchange outside of Barbados. Just yesterday, sir, the Central Bank of Barbados issued its latest round of foreign exchange control circulars, and for those who may be interested, they are on the Central Bank's website, which gives clarity with respect to not just the amendments that we're making here today, but with respect to how the policy will be operationalized going forward. And so we hope, sir, to see, one, greater opportunity and investment coming into this country. We've already started to see it. And as you know, sir, so long as we continue to stay the course and we continue to get the kinds of upgrades that we anticipate that we will get in terms of Barbados' credit quality, that will send a clear signal, sir, not just to foreign investors, but certainly domestic investors, that Barbados certainly is open for business. And being open for business simply means, sir, that we are prepared to engage our citizens to focus, sir, on executing opportunities outside of Barbados. We know that we have already started in Suriname, and the opportunities in Guyana already on the way. And we hope, sir, that citizens recognize that with Guyana specifically, sir, on the cusp of true transformation in terms of the oil exploration, that there will be opportunities, sir, for investment into that country. Suriname, the same, sir, and we want to ensure that our citizens understand what it is they're getting into. There's always risk with everything, sir, but no risk, sir, no reward. And therefore, not just in the region, but extra-regionally, that we go and we engage with confidence to ensure that at some point in the future, sir, we may not be in this place governing, and we would hope that we have left a sufficiently resilient set of policy that insulates ordinary Barbadians from the vagaries of maladministration as practiced by the last government. And it is our intent, sir, to ensure that Barbadians can create wealth not just in Barbados dollars, but also create wealth, sir, in foreign currency. And in so doing, the economic and financial resilience of the country will be much stronger, and therefore this is the platform on which we want to build to truly transform this country and to ensure that we achieve, sir, our strategic goals for development and enfranchisement for which this party has long been associated. And so, sir, with those few words, I want to commit these amendments to the Chamber and say that this government is committed, sir, to creating an environment of stability, and will continue to do so. And with that, it means then that we will be able to encourage new investment, new business opportunities for people to expand, entrepreneurship for young people, such that we can go forward, sir, and actually create the wealth that we want to be able to do. And with those few words, sir, I am obliged to you.
Honourable Member, I noticed when you use the term with those few words, that there was some smiling in the gallery from the same BCC students. I think they were probably wondering, I think they were wondering if you use the term whether true or not. Few words, they probably wouldn't want to hear you for more than few words.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I join my colleague, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, in supporting this bill before this Honourable Chamber. That we have to debate this today is as the evidence that caused the populace, the voters of Barbados, to get rid of the last maladministration. This is part of tidying up. You know, it is almost, well, I'm not even sure I should say this because, but I'll tell you the first thing that came to my mind, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes crooks snatch and drop some of the stuff they've snatched in their haste to beat what we call a hasty exit. This almost feels like that. I don't want to accuse them of being crooks, but it feels like that. Maybe I read too many detective novels or something, but that they were doing all kinds of stuff in some haste, going nowhere. We are validating actions that go back to 2017, when they were trying all kinds of stuff. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central could not even remember all the names, because there were so many names. You put a policy in place, it failed. You put another one in place, it failed. And I remember the Honourable Member for St. Michael West being part of the conversation, wondering really what was going on. He, with us, wondered, because we recognized that the then government really didn't know what they were doing. But this bill is part of the Labour Party's tidying up of the mess left by the last government. I want to begin by saying something that I believe is absolutely critical to state and to restate. And it is this: for an economy to do well, there must be confidence in that economy. And Mr. Speaker, when we speak to confidence in the economy, we speak to actors in the economy, whether there be business people or ordinary people like us purchasing goods or services. There needs to be confidence, because if there is no confidence, business people do not believe that they can earn a return. And so they do not invest, because business people generally are not philanthropists. They want to invest in order to earn a return. And so if there is no confidence, if they don't feel good about the investment climate, then they will not invest. But confidence is also important for ordinary citizens. Because, Mr. Speaker, I have a friend who said to me quite clearly during the last administration, he needed to do some finishing touches on his home. And he said to me he had enough money in the bank, a couple of $1,000, to finish the work that needed to be finished. But he was very hesitant about engaging a mason and a carpenter, because he, like the majority of Barbadians, felt a great discomfort with the direction that the last administration was taking the country. And so by his lack of confidence, a mason did not get a job and a carpenter did not get a job. Confidence is necessary for economic activity. it gets as small in terms of actual spend, you know that the lack of confidence in the economy is often seen by red caps in the airport. Because when people don't feel confident, when people don't feel as though they can give a $5 or $10, rather than take out $5 or $10 and give it to a red cap, they try to pile up all the bags and struggle through the airport themselves. So that people at what we consider at the very bottom, in terms of the earning scale, will suffer if there is no confidence in the economy. Confidence is absolutely essential. Now, the country has been treated to some recent mouthings, and I want to be careful. I know the standing orders say you're not supposed to quote from a newspaper.
Which might be very incorrect anyhow.
Sir?
Even the most things that you heard might be incorrect. So you might have a double incorrect thing.
A double incorrectness?
Yeah, you might have a double incorrect.
And so, having taken the guidance from you,
No, you
all I will,
no, I didn't say you can't.
right, yes, I
I
understand.
didn't say you can't, but just
But there has been, the reason why I mentioned in newspapers is because I want to believe, I did not go to the location where it is reported that the mouthings took place. Because, I mean, the people who elected me in St. Peter do not want me to be wasting my time running about in frivolous exercises. St. Peter people are serious people. So I mentioned the newspaper because the newspaper may have gotten it wrong. But, Mr. Speaker,
only the newspaper, honorable member? No, forgive me, I may have only the newspaper might have gotten it wrong.
I don't know, because if the newspaper got it right, it means that the person who spoke got it wrong.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
That's the
why
reason
I
for
asked
my
that.
confusion. But we were treated to some, I don't want to call it foolishness, but some stuff, for example, speaking to our default on debt in 2018. Now, this matter has been very clear to me from very early on. And I put it this way, Mr. Speaker. If we had paid, we the country, not the government, if the country had paid the debt that was due in 2018, by the time Christmas came around, whoever bought toy cars or Lego sets or new curtains would not have been able to do that because our foreign exchange would have, whatever little we had left, would have disappeared. Now, I don't know what the last administration had planned to do by not defaulting and paying. It is one thing to ask the central bank to keep printing money, to keep absorbing the credit, that insatiable appetite that the last government had for credit. It is one thing to do that, but I agree with the honourable member for Christchurch West Central, they probably would have devalued. That would have been the only option, because they resisted steadfastly the entreaties of the honourable member for St. Michael Northeast when she spoke to restructuring the debt. They resisted steadfastly the entreaty of my predecessor in office, the former Right Honourable member for St. Peter. They refused to consider alternatives that would have taken us out of the hole that they were so quickly digging for us. And so, this matter of not defaulting, as though default is default is not a good thing, but it was spoken to last weekend as though it was a catastrophic exercise. But I started by speaking to confidence because a government like this Labour Party government is, in my view, 21 months in, a newbie, I sometimes refer to myself as, but an exemplar of what good governance is all about. And I want to explain why I'm saying that. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central spoke to that social partnership meeting. The Prime Minister explained to all social partners the state of the economy. She, along with the Honourable Member who just led this debate, had taken a briefing on the Friday before. She explained to all of us, workers, representatives of business, what the state of play was. We all agreed, all the social partners, that we were in a position that would not have allowed us to be able to fulfill our debt commitments. We communicated with our international partners. Now I'm going through this, Mr. Speaker, slowly because I want to explain to all of us and to those who may choose to listen to us what good governance speaks to, what it looks like. We've spoken to our international partners. And so when we made the announcement, the Prime Minister in front of the partners, when we made the announcement that we would be defaulting, in the world of economics, a bad word, but when we made the announcement that we would be defaulting, in a couple of hours, the then head of the International Monetary Fund issued a statement on the IMF's website supporting the actions of the government of Barbados. That, Mr. Speaker, is what good governance looks like. It is what good fiscal management looks like, but it is also what confidence looks like. And you know, Mr. Speaker, not only did the IMF indicate clearly its support, but also our other multilateral partners. The Inter-American Development Bank also indicated its support, and the Caribbean Development Bank also indicated that it supported the actions of Barbados, actions that included defaulting on its debt. Because it realized those, all multilateral partners, recognized where we were, and they understood that we needed to take drastic measures to get out of the situation. We could not perpetuate what we were doing. Because what would have happened in a devaluation, we saw a report in the paper that we were taking actions to support business and not ordinary people. Now I'll say to you, Mr. Speaker, that a devaluation impacts ordinary people in a much more significant way than it impacts business people, especially business people who earn foreign exchange, or business people who quote their prices in a foreign currency. And so while Val in Rose Hill would have gone to the supermarket right across the road from her and trying to purchase a tin of corned beef that comes out of Brazil, if that corned beef had cost $3.50, after devaluation it would cost more. But Val is not getting any more money. Her pay, or whatever money she is getting, has not gone anywhere. But she has to pay more for something as basic as a tin of corned beef. And if she is like me and has to use toilet paper, that has to go up too. So it gets as basic, Mr. Speaker, as toilet paper, corned beef, and biscuits will be going up because we don't grow wheat. We have to import to mill. Everything goes up, and the ordinary person is the one who suffers. But that is the reason why the good people of Barbados did not take on foolishness back then, in 2018 I mean, and I suspect that based on the responses I've heard about coming out of last weekend, I think they realize that foolishness still abounds in certain places, and apparently in certain heads as well. Mr. Speaker, the confidence that has been reposed in this government by the multilaterals has made its mark, as a matter of fact, in a way that sometimes, well, in one situation, the Honourable Member for St. Michael South is was a bit taken off guard. Because, you know, if confidence in Barbados had disappeared or diminished significantly, once we'd restructured our debt, the new bonds we issued would not have, the lack of confidence would have meant that we would have had to issue those bonds at a significant discount. When people don't feel comfortable, whatever you want to sell them, you got to take off something off the price. I don't feel it may not be good, so if it costs $4, I would take it if you offer me $1, if I can pay $1 for it. Just like how some people buy used cars. If I ain't sure how long this is going to last, I am not paying any full price for it. The bonds that were issued, or some of the bonds that were issued in the debt restructuring, are almost at par, are almost at full price. It is because, Mr. Speaker, the economic players internationally recognize that this government is on the right track. It recognizes that this government is not pandering politically. It is prepared to take the hard decisions to ensure that Barbados and the economy of Barbados is returned to a path of economic sustainability. They recognize good leadership. They recognize good fiscal management. And they have reposed and stated their confidence in the leadership offered by this party. And so, after the default, we got an initial downgrade, which we expected. We are not like the last administration. We don't do things and then get surprised by the outcome. We knew we would get an initial downgrade on the credit side because we did not pay debt that was due. But, Mr. Speaker, within months, the upgrades started to come. And the upgrades started to come because while the initial downgrade was a technical one, you default, so you get downgraded, the policies, as a package of policies, said to the international community, the rating agencies, S&P, Moody's, Fitch, our actions said to the international community and to the rating agencies that we knew what we were doing. We were on the right track, and they were prepared to support us. And so our credit quality has been improving. It continues to improve. I will only say, as the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast often says to the country, we have to stay focused. We are getting upgrades, but we are not out of the woods. We have to stay focused. Now, I want to say to the country, to you, Mr. Speaker, that what happens at the macro level impacts the micro level. Now, I spoke to what would have happened if there was a downgrade, which is the direction that the last administration was really rushing toward. It sounds like that story. I think the Honourable Member for St. Michael West would know this. The pigs, when the man with the demons, when Jesus cast out the pigs, they rushed down the hill so fast into the sea and drowned. Whenever I think of the last administration, I think of those pigs. And I'm referring not just to behavior, but this intent on destroying themselves. Mr. Speaker, the last administration, including the one reported to have made certain utterances on the weekend, is known to have said that downgrades don't matter. And I say that what happens at the macro level impacts the micro level Because every time there is a downgrade, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central spoke to the government's repayment going up every time there's a downgrade. But I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, that every time there's a downgrade, when a business, a small business, a medium-sized business, a large business, approaches a financial institution for credit to borrow money, once the country is downgraded, the interest rate that is offered by the bank, by the financial institution, goes up. The risk that is priced, because interest is the price of risk, that risk is not just business risk. That risk that is to be priced is also a country risk. And so, when a bank that is located with a head office in Trinidad or in Toronto looks at the balance sheet and the income statement of a business, it takes into account, and the business plan, it takes into account the risks that are inherent in the business. But when that consideration reaches the credit committee is also taking into account the country risk. What happens if the country itself goes belly up? The business can go belly up, but the country can also go belly up. And having those over 20 downgrades was saying to the international community and saying to commercial banks in Barbados that there was a risk of Barbados going belly up. And so if Barbados goes belly up, as good as your business is, you cannot repay your debt. And so downgrades matter. They matter then, they matter now. They impact the cost of finance for ordinary businesses. They impact the cost of finance, and downgrades matter. What happens at the macro level impacts the micro level. Investment was also impacted. I spoke earlier about a house owner trying to finish a house. The same, Mr. Speaker, goes for a small business that is trying to expand. If there is no confidence at the macro level, then the small business people will not take up any savings to invest in the expansion of their enterprise. What happens at the macro level impacts the micro level. I want to say something else. As a minister with responsibility for labor in this country, I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, that the lack of confidence in a country's economy impacts negatively the ability of workers to get wage increases. A business, a company, an organization has a strong argument against any approach for wage increases if the economic climate around the business is uncertain and if there is no confidence in the economy at the time. If there's uncertainty, if there's a lack of confidence, when the business places that on the table, it is very difficult for workers and it is very difficult for the workers' representatives to argue that the business, that the organization should still go ahead and give wage increases. And so we had in Barbados, during those 10 years, an effective, we call it an internal devaluation, because prices were increasing, but wages were not increasing, as in the public sector, or in the private sector, not increasing at a pace that or at a pace that was the same as the increase in prices. So we had an internal, what we call an internal devaluation during those 10 years. Lack of confidence, impacting poor people. These matters, Mr. Speaker, are not matters only of business. These are not matters only of big economic theory. this matter of confidence and how the last government tried to manage in this scatterbrained approach, this impacted ordinary people in this country. It affected them negatively. It placed them in a position where they began to suffer more and more and more. Businesses employ people. Businesses employ people. And no one will step out and employ more workers if they do not feel that they have a future, if they do not feel that their business, their organization is on a growth path. They will not step out to employ additional workers. And so the lack of confidence in this economy during the 10 years that preceded us also impacted employment. It impacted employment. And I'm saying all this, Mr. Speaker, because we have to share with Barbadians that bad management of the economy at the macro level, at the national level, at the country level, impacts every single ordinary Barbadian in this country. It is not a matter for economists and bankers and those that some people feel have big brains. These are matters that impact ordinary people. People who are looking for jobs, people who have jobs but are looking for pay increases, people who are trying to keep up with the prices and the price increases in the economy. That is what bad management impacts. It impacts small businesses who are looking to improve. It also impacts those who may not be in business yet, but are looking to get into business. If you're looking to get into business and it doesn't look as though you're going to be able to get a return on your investment, then you will not get into business. So we have stunted the economy. We have stunted the growth of employment. We have stunted the dreams of entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs. Once there is no confidence, then the country is going backward quickly. This Barbados Labour Party government has come to office and is in the process of reversing that downward trajectory that the last administration was taking us on. Confidence is coming back, and it is coming back very quickly to this country. I want to touch on something that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central spoke to. And I think it is something that we need to keep focusing on. As a country, especially as a small country, and a country with an open economy, subject to a lot of vagaries on the international scene, we really have to encourage our business people to focus on the earning of foreign exchange. We have to encourage our people generally to focus on earning foreign exchange as opposed to focus on spending foreign exchange. Now, the imposition of the 2% foreign exchange fee, while it was not our idea, it is one that, because of the state of the economy, we are allowing to ride. Because we have to be pragmatic as a government. The people in Barbados generally have recognized that, and even though the 2% has impacted some people, generally speaking, when you speak to people in St. Peter, and when our candidate in St. Michael West is speaking to people in Westbury and those areas, when we speak to people in Broad Street or in Swan Street, people are recognizing that even though there is some discomfort, some pain, they recognize that we are on the right track. But we have to, as a people, focus on earning and focus less on spending. More on earning, less on spending. Now, there are many large economies that have a significant component of consumption to drive the economic activity. Barbados also has a certain degree of that. But as a small economy, without many natural resources, we really have to fix our minds on how we earn foreign exchange. Barbados, in this, now the third decade of the 21st century, and with the advent and the development of information and communication technology, we have a grand opportunity to earn foreign exchange without having to do manufacturing, without having to export goods, because the internet has created that platform that allows us to sell all kinds of things to people outside of Barbados. It allows us to sell our brain power, or our knowledge. It allows us to sell our skills to those outside of our country so that we can earn foreign exchange. And we have to focus, and I'm really calling on Barbadians to let us put our minds toward using our skills. And Barbadians have lots of skills. Those who interact with us, and when I say with us, I don't mean those of us who are in this honorable chamber. Those who interact with Barbadians generally recognize that Barbadians are intelligent people, that Barbadians have good skill and have good experience. And there are people who are willing to purchase the product of those skills and knowledge and experience. Our people, Mr. Speaker, have to focus and put our minds to what is it that we can develop as intellectual property, as skill, as apps, the Internet of Things. What is it that we can do that will allow us to use that great leveler called the Internet to expose our goods, our services, our skills to the world and cause us to earn foreign exchange? We have some young people who, through their social media influencing ability, are earning money from some of the big trading sites like Amazon and some others. But coding is one. But just by being influencers, we have young people who, through influencing, are earning money. I know because I saw a check from a company overseas for a couple of dollars, but I realized, that caused me to realize, but this thing is real. When you get to my age, you're not as au fait with the influencing side. But it is real because I actually saw and felt the check. Or people, the person is well known, the check came to a person well known for the, oh, okay, a person well known to the honorable member for Christchurch East. We can earn foreign exchange if we put our minds to earning foreign exchange. In that vein, I call on those involved in education to continue on the road of exposing our young people at very early ages to things like coding, expose them to the internet. We have to move past the idea that technology in the school is meant only to be used by a teacher. Technology in a school is meant to be used by those in the school who are learning. Technology is not just a teaching tool. Technology is also for learning. And I encourage those involved in education to continue. I say continue because we've started that process. I know the honorable member for St. Michael's.
Honourable, you have 2 more minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honorable member for St. Michael's Southeast has been working assiduously in that regard, and I want to encourage her and those in her ministry to continue, because we can, if we address the matter with our young people now, we can move their mindsets from being spenders of foreign exchange to being earners of foreign exchange. I want to, before I end, just speak to a matter, and again, I draw the clear distinction between this government and the last group. I think it is it Schedule 6? I don't remember. But in one of the schedules to this, in one of the schedules to the bill that we are debating today, there is a list with some exemptions. And you know, the last government imposed some taxes one time. I realized the Honourable Member for Christchurch, Central, remembers the dates and stuff. When foolishness is happening, I try not to crowd my mind with it. But I remember a tax being imposed. And the government did not realize, it seems, that they had imposed a tax on diesel, the fuel of industry. They imposed a tax on diesel in their mad rush to get money. I don't know what they were doing with it. The people of Barbados said that they can't see where the money went, and they're asking us to look into the pockets. But they were taxing and tax diesel. In this bill, we will realize, Mr. Speaker, that kerosene is exempt, diesel is also exempt. This government recognizes our role in facilitating industry, industrial development, economic activity, and so we will not impose a tax like this on the fuel that drives the economic activity of the country. The fuel that is currently used by Barbados Light & Power, which then gets passed right through. The fuel that is used by any industrial generating system. Diesel is exempt. Kerosene is also exempt. Mr. Speaker, I know my time has elapsed. I just want to say that as a government, we will continue to tidy up and clean up the messes. Nobody likes it, but like I said last week, not necessarily to the Honourable Member for St. Michael West, but we see all work as good work. And the work of the janitor is no less honourable than the work of the bishop. I mean, any bishop. And if we have to do the janitorial work to clean up the messes of the last administration, that we will do, because we have come to office and we asked to be elected to serve, because we recognize where the country was headed. And we recognize that we would have had to do a cleaning job, a fixing job. This bill, Mr. Speaker, is part of that cleanup. It is part of that tidying up. And so I want to support not just the bill, but I want to support the bill in the context of this government's understanding of where we are as a nation, this government's understanding of what it takes to be good leaders in the country, this government's understanding of what good fiscal management looks like, this government's understanding that these macro matters are matters that affect the ordinary people of St. Peter, St. Michael Central, St. Michael West, and all across Barbados. And so, Mr. Speaker, with that, I am obliged to you even as I support this bill.
Honourable Member for St. Michael West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I will assure you that I would not delay your lunch hour, and I shall be as brief as my thoughts would permit. My honourable friend from St. Peter, who thinks a lot like me, and who thinks a lot of me, sometimes is wont to put words in my mouth. And I don't think I have on any occasion signaled to this chamber or to anybody in Barbados that certain types of work should not be classified as work because they're too menial. What I have said, just to set the record straight, is that we, with the level of investment we put into education in Barbados, as an administration, given the mandate to the degree which it has, should not consign or confine our young people to a state where their loftiest aspiration is to debush on a seasonal basis. We got to do better than that. In 2020, because I do believe the work of the janitor is just as important as the work of the elder, irrespective of the denomination that he or she represents. Now, Mr. Speaker, I said I want to be brief, and I do want to keep my word. It seems to me that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, who led the presentation today, and supported by my friend from St. Peter, my honourable friend from St. Peter, they both sought to suggest that when this measure would have initially been introduced by the former administration, it was a bad thing. It was a bad thing. But now it is to be supported by this administration, and the actions of the former administration validated by this Parliament. It is a good thing. Now, I know very well, Mr. Speaker, it is all right and sometimes necessary. You support one position at...
Honourable Member St. Peter, point of order.
Yes, point of order. To restore some order. The Honourable Member for St. Michael West is suggesting, he is saying in not so many words that we are not, these are not his words, I'm not quoting. What I understood him to say was that we are acting in a two-faced kind of manner. But that's just my country upbringing. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that we are still of the view that if the country was better managed, that measure would not have been necessary. But we both myself and the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, say that we would let it ride for a bit longer before we dealt with it. So the Honourable Member was misleading the House because he is saying that we thought it was so bad, but now we come to validate. He is trying to mislead the Chamber and the public.
No intention whatsoever, Mr. Speaker, to mislead the public. I never laid a charge of being two-faced to any of my two honourable friends who spoke before me. They are both honourable gentlemen. And if the Honourable Member St. Peter would have allowed me to complete my statement before his too hasty interruption, he would have heard me say that it is quite necessary at some times to support one position, and perhaps after some time, with a somewhat adjustment in the circumstances or being exposed to a measure of wider clarity, to be supportive of that which you did not previously support. That happens. But if you're going to do that, you say that. And you make it absolutely clear that we thought it was bad then, but we think it is good now. And that is what you should say. We thought it was a bad thing then, but we think it is a good thing now in the circumstances.
Continue, Honourable Member for Michael West.
Point of order. I realize that the Honourable Member is depending, so I'm going to help him. He is depending on the interjections to help give him some fuel for his response. We still don't think it is good. There's a certain prudence at this point in our economic circumstances that call for us, or that does not allow for us to stop it. We have not changed our view on whether or not it is good or bad. Our view remains. We have not changed our view. Just the situation that we are in at the moment, Mr. Speaker.
I hear my honourable friend saying, Mr. Speaker, is that the government is attempting to have Parliament approve that which they do not consider to be a good thing. So that action that they're asking us to approve and support by them is not considered to be a good thing, but they will do it anyhow. The thinking being reflected by the All-Member St. Peter is the same thinking reflected by the former administration. We don't think, if I remember their position clearly, we don't think necessarily is the best thing, but it is necessary. And as an administration, then in opposition, you didn't support it, but you're reflecting the same thinking now and asking us to approve it. That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying that if you're going to do that, say so, because life's exigencies sometimes bring us to the point where we have to do that type of thing. Now, I want to go where the rubber meets the road, for I am neither an economist or an aspiring economist. So I am not going to indulge in a reflective lesson of history as to what happened under the last administration, or a general reflection on the merits or demerits of the decision to default on the Barbados debt. I'm not going there, but I'm going to very quickly suggest a few things. Am I to interpret this, because this is the interpretation I can put to the measure that's being put before us? What will result out of this is that you are going to increase the cost to small businesses in Barbados. You are going to increase the cost of doing business to small businesses in Barbados. Mr. Speaker, you are not an economist yourself, I don't think, are you? I know you're many things. I don't think you're an economist, but you understand that this measure will increase the cost to small businesses of doing their business. The Honourable Member for St. George South, I am sure, will lament that truth, that reality exists, that this measure will increase the cost of doing. It will therefore stifle or dampen attempts at self-endeavor and self-development in terms of business initiative. This is taking place, Mr. Speaker, we have always to refer to the context. This is taking place in the context of added water charges, already increasing the cost of doing business. This is taking place in the cost of added energy costs, already increasing the cost of doing business. This is taking place in the context of increased taxation, already escalating the cost to small businesses of doing businesses in Barbados. And as the Honourable Member of St. Peter did intimate by something he said, you have to take as a part of that context the wage demands on business operators that will come from labour in a context of increased taxation, higher cost of living, other charges and user fees, increasing the cost to consumers. The demands for wage increases on the part of labour will intensify. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think that that has to be considered. I wonder if the measure is also being approved and persisted with as a way of curbing the leak of foreign currency by dampening the demand for overseas purchasing. To me, it has that effect. My interpretation that it is intended so to do. You dampen the disposition of persons to purchase overseas and therefore reduce the level of leakage with respect to foreign currency. Now, when you have a persisting situation of lack of growth and therefore a very slow rate of generating foreign revenues, these things become necessary. When in fact, to increase your foreign reserves position, you are more reliant on borrowings, these types of measures become the practice. Already we have heard the boasts repeated in this chamber today with reference to the healthier levels of foreign exchange existing right now. The figure I think quoted was 1.48 billion or something like that. One has to examine how we have arrived at that level, and that's Barbados dollars to my understanding. And one has to examine how we have arrived at that level, and one has to consider the pressure government feels to ensure that the growing level of foreign reserves is not somehow retarded by leakage through various means, and the spending of Barbadians overseas on consumption, which has to be paid for in foreign currency, contributes to that leakage. And therefore, my interpretation is that this measure, one, will impact the cost of doing business for small businesses by increasing that cost, and two, will be intended to curb leakage on foreign reserves in a context where you're not growing fast enough, you're not earning enough because you're not producing enough, and therefore you can't have Barbadians spending too much overseas to negatively impact those levels. What it will do, it will impact also on the ability of Barbadians, Mr. Speaker, to find cheaper prices overseas. The reality is that why some people buy overseas is because the cost is cheaper. That is the unfortunate reality. By adding to their costs by this 2% charge with respect to foreign exchange transactions in foreign exchange, Mr. Speaker, you are therefore, in my view, countering that ability, that disposition on the part of Bajans to seek for cheaper prices of commodities overseas. Some rely on that to cushion the effect of cost of living at home, and some rely on that as a means of providing products and supplies for their businesses so they can offer lower costs in the Barbadian context to their particular set of customers. Now, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, Mr. Speaker, also attached to his presentation and attached to the reasons for supporting the measure before us today, the previous measure considered here of foreign exchange, the facility of foreign exchange accounts. And I think that in that also, Mr. Speaker, there is a story to be told. I think facilitating Barbadians to hold accounts in foreign currency encourages savings. It encourages savings. It is the other side to the coin to which I just spoke a few moments ago. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, Bajans don't have anything to save. In case we have not been listening to the voice on the streets, Bajans don't have anything to save. Bajans are struggling to save. And if this measure of facilitating foreign exchange accounts is an attempt to help people to be better disposed towards saving, you come up against the reality that there's nothing to save. Maybe, Mr. Speaker, you have wherewithal to save. But people with whom I treat on an often basis suggest they don't talk savings, Mr. Speaker. They're talking survival. They're talking survival. They don't talk savings. They have nothing to save. The road is rough. Things are wrong. Whether you're in St. George South or St. Michael West, the picture is the same. Things are brown. And if it's in St. Michael West, that's the reality. It is so. It's St. Michael Central, because we're relatives and things are brown. The Bajans don't have the wherewithal and the means to save. Yes, the facility of having foreign exchange accounts also implies earnings, Mr. Speaker. It implies earnings. We're not earning. What are we earning? And this implies that they're earnings. Now, that may be true to a privileged few. That may be true of certain elements in a certain sector. But that is not true of the majority of Barbadians. Whether you're talking about individuals or small businesses, there's not a lot of earnings. The country is not earning because we are not exporting. We are hobbling along on one leg, and that is the tourism sector. And even that has its challenges, because the figures don't indicate that we are seeing increased earnings, even though we see increased numbers. And the trends, if you look back over several years, speak to the fact that there has been decline. I think you go all back to the year of 2007, and we've still not reached to the extent to which we had earned through that sector at that time. So there are no earnings, and there's nothing that Bajans can save. Generally, the story to be told out there for the majority is not the story of a capacity to save, a wherewithal to save. One would have to ask oneself, and I ask myself, Mr. Speaker, to what extent, in several instances, I ask myself this question: to what extent is the policy of the government driven by pressure that comes from the private interests? And when you start to hear about things like facilitating foreign exchange accounts, you have to ask yourself to what extent policies like that are driven by the pressure that private interests, private sector interests can bring to bear on government. Mr. Speaker, it is not the average Barbadian that wants to hold a foreign exchange account. It's not the average Barbadian that has the capacity to hold any foreign exchange account, not even small businesses. So the question is, who benefits most from that type of policy? And does that type of policy indicate that there is some degree of succumbing to pressure from private sector interests that causes government to go in that direction? I only raise this because the Honourable Member of Christchurch is central in presenting on this exchange control amendment, spoke to the facility of foreign exchange accounts as well. But we have known traditionally that administrations across the years have found themselves too often subject to the influence and pressure that comes from private sector interests, and certain policies emanate out of that context. We would want to be sure that this type of facility, this type of policy, is not the outflow from that. If one analyzes it very carefully, one will suggest also that a facility to establish accounts in foreign currency puts the government in position, if it is so disposed, to offer investment instruments at home which are denoted in foreign currency. Yeah, that's a reality. Now, recent experience with investments in government instruments or government paper have been unpleasant for Barbadians across the board. And the story of default and restructure has been related here afresh today. And there is a mindset, a mood, one would imagine, existing out there, that if government is offering any instrument for investment, I'm staying clear of that, based on my past and most recent experience. But if those investment instruments at home are denominated in foreign currency, then there's an added incentive perhaps to get involved. And if that is the case, then the government should tell us that this is what we are trying to do. Now, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend, Honourable Michael North, has had the loudest voice on the issue of my honourable friend from St. Michael North, whose attention I now have for the first time during this presentation. And that reflects on me, yes. And that's all I'm saying. And that is all I'm saying. But my honourable friend from St. Michael North, whose voice has been loudest with respect for pointing out the pressures that the banking sector put on its clients, consumers, users of the bank services in Barbados, I am sure would want to join me in querying whether or not there is some scope for banks further deriving a level of profitability out of a policy that allows for persons like yourself and himself to have foreign currency accounts in Barbados.
Honourable member, you're making reference to the chair, or that's just a fleeting glance?
I'm
You're not making reference to the chair that possess the financial wherewithal to have a foreign account, as you say?
I do, Mr. Speaker, apologize for my error with reference to yourself.
Thank you so much.
I'm
I'm grateful for that.
I know that you stand close by me and represent St. Michael Central. I'm very familiar with you over the border in St. Michael West. And perhaps I should have restricted my reference to the all members of St. Michael North.
He probably is of the same ilk also. I don't think that the honourable members in here do not possess the financial wherewithal.
Well, maybe I should apologize for that and therefore relate my comments to the all members of Mike Christchurch South. Is that all right?
Christchurch South.
And all I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is that we have a situation in Barbados where Bajans have been ripped off by the banking sector with the application of all kinds of charges for services at the bank, over the counter, outside and off and away from the counter. And all I'm suggesting, Mr. Speaker, is that we've got to be careful that policies that allow for Barbadians to have foreign currency accounts do not put the banks in a position where they can apply further charges which would add to an already existing burden. Policies like these often treat to the benefits of the haves and not the have-nots, as by your interruption, Mr. Speaker, you were suggesting. You are numbered among the have-nots. I am familiar with that experience and that status. And I join with you in suggesting that when we bring policies like these, the majority opinion is that they are intended to benefit the haves, those who are already privileged, the institutions which already benefit, the individuals who are already blessed in this regard. And all I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, is if the exchange controls introduced by the last administration were considered necessary then, and by this administration they are considered necessary now, though not thought to be good, we have to be concerned about the negative impact upon small businesses, upon individuals, upon people's capacity to find prices which are more in keeping with their budget, but putting added strain in a context where other policies introduced by this administration have already placed a financial burden on those who are subject to those policies. I was a little longer than I anticipated, Mr. Speaker, mostly due to the interruptions out of St. Peter. But that's it, and I thank you.
Honourable Member State Bishop.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of the session for lunch until 3 p.m. In order to facilitate the Cabinet meeting at 2 p.m.
The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 3 p.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands suspended until 3 p.m.